This is The Driver, sponsored by Bristol Street Motors.
Your time is coming around.
Welcome to Brands Hatch for another episode of The Driver. I'm here right in the centre of the fan zone, the fans trade centre of Brands Hatch, for an exciting race, the British Touring Car Championship, with the boys from the team from the Bristol Street Motors EXCELR8 motorsport team in BTCC, Tom Chilton, Tom Ingram, Nick Halstead and Ronan Pearson, a new addition. You're recently joined to the team, aren't you? The latest addition to the team, or is it both of you?
We both are. Yeah, Nick did a one-off round before, but so he's not quite a complete rookie. Okay. But I am.
So you've got the old sweats on the left. You guys are coming in, and you're already mixing things up straight away. You were at a podium in your first weekend of BTC, which is remarkable.
Yeah, very good. We'll not mention anything that happened after that, but we did stand on the podium, which was absolutely fantastic. We achieved a huge amount in our first weekend. I couldn't be proud of what we did do. And yeah, we just have to keep building on that momentum.
Yeah, mega. Well, I should point out that I'm not racing with the team. I'm just the jealous host. I'm Ben Collins. I used to be the Stig, so I've driven a lot of cars, and I can sympathise with the hardware in the hands of these people. I know Tom fairly well because we met on Top Gear some years ago. You're a BTC veteran. You've had a good first weekend at Donington, obviously, because you got a race win. So how was it for you?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, do you know what? It's crazy being a veteran at 38, but yeah, it's 2 decades now being in this.
You're lying.
That's what it says on Wikipedia. Yeah. But how old really are you?
I am 38, 4 kids, and yeah, 2 decades in this. And I was so happy to get a win at round 1 at Donington Park a couple of weeks ago. It was great for the team. They put a lot of hard work in on the car of the winter. It's good for me because I actually had a bit of a dry spell in terms of wins for about 4 years. So it was really, really nice to get that one under the belt to start with. And we're leading the team's championship, and me and Tom are both 2nd and 4th in the championship, coming here into Brands Hatch, which is a really, really nice place to be.
So actually, between the two of you, you guys kind of bookended the weekend. You won a race and you binned it a couple of times. Is that right?
No, I was chucked off.
Were you? Okay, well, that never happens.
So no.
I mean, you guys are such gentlemen.
You should know this. There's always excuses.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's the initiation program for BTCC. Hello and welcome to the BTCC.
Yeah.
Kaboosh.
Yes.
But for you, it's a big task. You've been racing in GT. You're into a British touring car, which has got less downforce, less grip, smaller tyres, less power. And front-wheel drive, which is an unnatural way to drive. I mean, you guys are all good at it. This is, again, new to you as well, probably. No, you came out of minis, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you've got a bit of experience with it, but from a big GT car that's rear-wheel drive,
lots of stability, lots of aero to no aero, rolls, rear steer, everything. They're huge amounts of fun to drive, but yeah, they are. People don't realise the skill required to keep them on the circuit. Especially in the wet, Donington was a real eye-opener for me of some of the drivers still on slicks going round when it was still pouring with rain requires incredible skill to keep it on there.
Well, I've been racing for 20 years. I had one tryout in a front-wheel drive touring car, and the outlap feels like it's trying to kill you. The cars are set up to be so unstable, to get over the understeer, to get through the corner, tails all over the place. Yeah. God knows what they're like in the rain. And how about you? First weekend, you're back in action, and how was yours?
Yeah, it was a kind of mixed weekend for us in total, because we lost quite a bit of time during free practice 1. We had a bit of an issue in free practice 1, and how our weekends, we sort of structure them. A lot of the free practice 1 stuff is just housekeeping work. So we scrub all of our tyres, we do all of our radio checks, we do all of our data work. So actually free practice 1 very quickly gets swallowed up by not actually doing much, but by doing a lot of prep work ready for the rest of the weekend. We had an issue in P1, so we lost it. So that means then we had to do a lot of our prep work in free practice 2. So we were just a little bit on the back foot as it started off, which is a shame. But we managed to get into the top 10 shootout. I think we were 6th in the end on the grid, which was good. And then we sort of just muddled through. I don't think we necessarily had great pace on the weekend, but we just sort of managed to pull a result out. And I think actually that Donington Park weekend, with it being wet, actually helped a little bit of that, because it negated some of that disadvantage of losing on Saturday. So all in all, it was a good weekend. As I say, for all 4 of us, really, it was a great weekend. Obviously, Tom getting his first win since 1992, which was great. Ronan getting his first one, and Nick getting a great finish as well. it was a good weekend all in all, and we've come into here leading the teams, right at the sharp end where we need to be.
So where are you in the championship?
So I'm second currently.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just learning about the handicap system and how the hybrids work. So these are front-wheel drive hybrids, Hyundais you're racing.
Yep.
And the better you're doing, the less power you get. When you got to push the button, you can activate the hybrids in the straights. So you and Tom are going to be similar pegging, which means you're allowed to get hybrid boost above 120k, is it?
Yeah, that's correct. So basically, that's one of the things that they've changed for this year, is to change that deployment range, because the idea of the hybrid system is to get you up to your terminal top speed as quick as possible, really. You're not using it when you're already going fast. You're using it from a slow speed to get you there faster. So one of the things they've changed for this year is to change the deployment speed. So now if you're leading the championship up to 10th, the deployment speed is a decreasing amount. So for Dan Camish, who's leading it, he has to deploy, is it 150 clicks or something?
It's 135k, but in the wet, the hybrid kicks in 20k later, so it's actually 155k it comes in the wet, which feels a very long way down.
And it makes a big difference, because we're all so trained to be queued up to be, as soon as we can get to the deployment speed, bang, straight into the button. So it's now it feels laboured, it feels slow, yeah, it really does. So we'll notice it quite significantly. Round here we have a reduced amount, it's only down to 10, I think it's going to be 10 seconds realistically that you can use over the course of the lap. So the disadvantage is slightly negated, but I think for Tom and I, we're a little bit hampered in that regard.
The guys at the back, what speed can they get the boost?
That's 120 clicks, isn't it?
So there's a 30k difference.
So, and it makes quite a big difference. It's quite.
Well, on this straight it will. You can punch out of clear ways, and then you've got a good chance to frustrate the one in front. So that should be interesting in the rain. How was it driving in the wet this morning? Because you guys are, unbelievably close. Looking at the times, I think there's half a tenth between you two. So of the team, you guys were there, and I think sixth.
Further half tenth to Mr.
Yeah, I think the three of us are almost together in that regard. Yeah.
The circuit actually was very different from the beginning of FP2 to the end of FP2. I think when I got the balance right in the car with the setup, by that point the circuit actually slowed up quite a lot, and then it fell off a cliff right at the end with it getting very greasy to start to strive it. I was P7, but fundamentally I was only, I think, 2/10 off first. Yep. But I think if Rory had gone out, or he did do his time on lap 3, so it was the beginning of the session, the circuit was best. If he had new tyres, I was using old tyres, all of a sudden you're actually the fastest. But P7 either way is a great place to be after FP2. Who knows what the circuit's going to be like in qualifying. It's going to rain a bit harder nearer the time, or if it's going to stay greasy, but there are cars out there racing at the moment. So my mind's thinking it's going to be.
You might get lucky, but looking at those clouds, I doubt it. So assuming it stays the same, you've all had experience of the car now in the rain. So what would you change to go faster? Because obviously the track position's key. Brands Indy, it's tight track. There's only a couple of places to get past. You want to be at the front. What have you guys decided to do with the cars to get them a little bit, get more traction, whatever, carry more momentum? What are you trying to do?
I think fundamentally that you're trying to set the car up for conditions that we're not actually knowing what it's going to be. As Tom alluded to at the start there, the circuit from the start of FP2 to the end of FP2 changed by about a second a lap. It just got worse. So we're all looking at it going, well, which way is it going to start very quick? Is it going to start slow? Are we starting the session as we finished FP2, or are we starting as it started FP2? So there's so many unknowns really. Fundamentally, exactly like you picked up on, qualifying's key around here because there's limited places to get past. It's a tight circuit at the best of times, so qualifying's super important. But the big thing that you notice here is a bit of stability going into Paddock Hill because you've got bumps on the way in, you then drop off seemingly the face of the earth as you go over the crest. But then it's quite a difficult circuit then to get a car to be good in every corner because you've got the high speed stuff of Paddock and Surtees, and you've got the slow speed stuff then of Druids and Clearways. So it's trying to get a car set up around here is hard work. But
so he's not telling me what changes he's making to his setup. What are you doing?
Well, I think the key to understand is free practice. We only get carryover tyres for that, and qualifying. So we all have to run on limited set of tyres during free practice. So qualifying we get 3 sets, and so it'll the result depending on, most people set their quickest time. I think you, Tom, set your time near the end, but most people set their quickest right at the beginning of free practice. But it'll we talk through the data and we learn from it, look at each other's.
You'll work together.
Yeah.
It's always the same though. Every time you come to qualifying, you almost tighten the belts an extra couple of clicks as well. And like for me in FP2, I didn't feel like I was driving the wheels off the car. It came to me really, really easily. So I'm kind of expecting, if it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. But I'm expecting to find a few more tenths of a second out there, which could be the difference between being in the top 4 and being in 16th back. So for me, I think maybe just a little bit more bravery, but we're actually going to try and keep the car relatively the same.
Oh, you? Okay, so you feel comfortable with the car and you reckon you can drag a bit more time out of yourself.
Yeah.
It's an amazing track, this. It's got 2 very fast corners, paddock, surtees, which I guess is not flat in the wet. So it is commitment, but then you have to it's very, very focused. The technique is critical in the slower corner at Druids, the line, and all those things.
Exactly. I think it's really easy to overthink what you're going to do and plan ahead, like we mentioned, for conditions that you're not actually sure what they're going to be like yet. I think there's always a bit of compromise. If you think, there's two corners out of the 4, we can find a lot of time in, what is that going to do in the slower speed or the high speed, vice versa? So I almost think just get on with the job, don't overthink it too much.
And the circuit will change a lot during qualifying because people will throw it off. You'll get stuff on bits that, so the line will end up, being different by the end of it.
Yeah. So the amazing thing with having 4 of you in the team is you can share that data, you can see exactly what the other driver's doing. You can't hide anything either, so there's a disadvantage if you're faster and you've carried some speed and there's a little bit of technique difference. So although you're very, very close in your lap times, can you see anything between yourselves where one of you's quicker at paddock, one of you's got something at Druids on the brakes that's more than half a tenth? Is there a few bits and pieces you can pick up?
What's crazy is I can almost tell you why each one of us are quicker at different corners. It's because we all have got completely different setups.
Yeah.
And that's why we're all quicker at different corners. But it fundamentally comes down to the fact, do you want your car to be quick at Druids or do you want it to be quick at paddock, for example? And you set the car up around that, working out what's going to be the best for either the lap time qualifying or for the race. You want to be good out the corner, which is then leading to the corner, which is the best one for overtaking. So it's very much, you can never get a perfect car around Brands Indy. There'll always be one corner which isn't quite right, but if you get that one perfect, the others will be rubbish. So it's just focusing on what you think is the best for ultimate pace or for racing.
So what have you set yours up primarily? What's your main focus for you? Because you go around here a lot, you've been around here many times, many years. You know a lot from experience what counts in the race. So where's your focus?
Setting it up for traction. Because it's very greasy. Yeah, for me, I'm going slow speed. If it's a bit goosey-loosey on the high speed, I'll just hang on to it. But for me, it's getting the traction because that will be the advantage on the stopwatch.
So Druids and clearways, so that you get the torque down and get away and get clean, and then harass them down the straight. Is that a similar approach for you? Or
yeah, absolutely right. Again, I've always been a fan of just having a car that can get into the apex. I'm not too fussed about what the rear of the car is doing. I'm quite happy to have it, moving around. So for me, that's where they kind of have a lot of similarities in the sense that what we both like is very similar in that sense. So Tom and I, bounce ideas off of each other, as we did all of last year. But then it's also good to get Ronan's input on a lot of things because Ronan hasn't experienced it before, and sometimes not experiencing it is almost just as powerful as experiencing it because you feel it in a different way to what we do. So it'll be very similar to me. I like a car that can get into the apex. So Paddock Hill, for example, as long as I can get the front in, I'm not too fussed about what the rear is doing, which then also helps you at the slower speed stuff. So it helps at Druids, it helps at Graham Hill, it helps at Clearways, and the whole thing sort of falls in line. So we can kind of bounce ideas across everyone. And the same for Nick. Nick's having to learn all of this as he's going through. So it's good for us to try it, see what works, pass it over to Nick, and he goes, I quite like it actually, or why the hell is this trying to do to me? It's quite nice to experience it that way.
So that's the upside of being teammates. Bristol Street Motors EXCELR8 team. You're all friends. You're all in the same uniforms. You're all sharing data, but you do all want to win. So how does this work? I mean, looking at the times, you're all very condensed. You're all very close, together, and the first corner's looming. So how long do you guys stay friends for?
Always. That's the political answer.
You were fast on that one. You and Tom were very quiet, weren't we?
There's always, what I really like about all 4 of us is we've got a great dynamic. We all fit in really well. There's time and place for banter, but when it's helmets on, I from my point of view, each car is just a different driver, different car. You just have to don't treat anybody any differently. We're all there for the same thing. But the difference is we all have a lot of respect for each other, especially with being in the same team. So yeah, we all want to see each other do well. Like our result in race 2, you know, I was delighted for Tom having his win.
I was very happy for you. I thought you were I was a younger version of me. You were actually older, you were 21, I was 17, but both our first races in the BTCC, we both finished 3rd.
That's right, yeah.
Which is really cool.
Pretty crazy stat. So yeah, that's my kind of take on it all.
So I've hatched a reasonable career as a stunt driver, banging into stuff, and I did one round of British touring cars at this track, and I was quite surprised by the level of contact that goes on. Is that still the case? Like, what is the culture like? Because it does change season to season depending who's in it.
Yeah, I think, and also there was a time. What year was it? What year did you?
2010.
Yeah, see that was I think at that point of the BTCC championship, it was a bit rough.
Yeah.
But maybe too much so.
Well, I thought it was being turned around on a safety car, or full course yellow.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. You know, it's sort of a pub fight.
Yes.
But you know, the idea of it was always close racing, and the close racing you couldn't avoid it at some point. But when it was big into, you know, people firing into each other, it was a bit daft. How it is now, I think we've got a good balance of respect between drivers. But if you leave a gap, I'm still going to throw it down the inside and run you wide. Yeah. But it's not to the point now where you're clattering into each other just for the sake of it. Yeah. And I think that's the nice balance. But again, in the past, it was always done very tactful. It was always done, if you're going into Silverstone's a great example, as if you were coming to the last corner, it's fingertip stuff. The little nudge you'd give somebody wouldn't be enough to fire them. It'd just be enough just to destabilize the car. So it almost required more skill to be able to drive very gently running up against people. It almost required its own skill level as well. But it's tough racing. You know, you guys have experienced it the first time. You're better placed to probably judge on it. We're probably used to it now, but for you guys are probably better judged for it.
I almost kind of feel that because I've now experienced being in the front pack and also having to come through from the back, and it's rougher at the back, mainly in the standard of driver, being brutally honest. There's a lot of respect in that top kind of 12, but backwards you're fighting for, again, in my opinion, sometimes what's a P nowhere, trying to work your way towards points, but somebody will literally white line it on the inside of the track for P17. And you think, we just need to be pressing forward here. And that's when it can get a bit kind of argy-bargy, tit for tat. But actually, yeah, these guys that are right at the front are very, very clean and also masters of their craft, like what Tom's saying with the little nudges here and there, laying into each other. Yeah.
So the Achilles heel for a front-wheel drive car is druids if you get punted from the behind, because it just makes it you just can't turn in, you sort of shoot straight on. Or at least that's what I noticed when I was nerfing one in a BMW, which was rear-wheel drive. So is that I appreciate you're saying the culture is much more, you know, respectful, but it's still something, especially in the rain, it's very easy to run wide there, or for someone to nerf you wide. Is that something you think about?
So the new rules now is if there's a push to pass, you have a whole lap to give the place back. If you don't, then the clerk of the course deals with it.
But it is very slippery at the minute, and you know, it's very easy to accidentally.
I mean, race 1, I got punched off at Donington Park by 4 cars effectively, because they all locked up the old hairpin, fired me straight off the track, and they said we couldn't tell anyone off because it was greasy. It was the first race of the year, and it was a whole load of cars all in the back of you, Tom. And I was trying to brake not to hit Stephen Jelly, he was going really slow and I had nowhere to go. But then I was the one who then get whacked off from behind, so I was very cross. But I also know after doing a few hundred race starts in this that's normal. So,
and you're quite a versatile driver, because you've been known to drive a double-decker bus in the past as well. Have you explained to these guys what that involved?
I remember being on the radio to you, because I remember they said, oh yeah, lap 3, whatever it was, can you please roll the bus? Yeah, sure, gave it the old Scandinavian flick, in she goes. But as we then hit the big lump of grass to get it to go over, my natural reactions obviously put opposite lock on full throttles, pull it back down. And he's like, what are you doing, Tom? You're supposed to roll it. And I was like, natural reaction, sorry. And then Anthony Reid gets on and he goes, he's behind in like the single decker bus, this white thing. He goes, Thomas, what I'll do is I'll give you a bit of a tap, like I did to you at Tower in 2003. A little tap on the rear right corner should help you go over nicely, old boy. Next thing I know, I keep turning the lock. Reedy fires me so hard that like my seat wobbled, got massive whiplash in my neck. It was a big one, but it looked good, didn't it?
It was good. Anthony Reid, the well-spoken thug. Guys, good luck to you. I'm really excited to see what you guys do in qualifying, where you shape up for the race. I hope it's at the front and have a clean fight to the end. Thanks for joining us. If you liked it, click subscribe and we'll see you in the next one.